Hi, my name is James Lavenue. This is interview number one for Management 5113. I am in group number one. And this is my mother who I'm interviewing. And who are you?
My name is Sandra Lavenue. I'm an attorney with the state of Oklahoma. I've been an attorney since 1988, and I'm currently the manager of the Wage and Hour Division within the Oklahoma Department of Labor.
All right. And what does a typical day look like for you in your job?
Well, the typical day is that there's never a typical day. I spend a lot of time on the computer preparing cases. I deal with employees that have constant line of questions and dealing with various issues throughout the day. And it may be a politician that's contacting me needing an answer for some type of legislation. It could be some type of crisis where somebody is injured in the state of Oklahoma, an employee. So the only real answer is it just depends.
Well, that's a good answer. And what qualities would you say that you look for in a person that's a potential hire?
Well, and I'm very opinionated on this because, as an attorney, it's a very specialized skill. And there's so many different types of attorneys, and I'm hiring investigators for particular types of cases. I'm more concerned with an employee's integrity, their ability and effort that they're willing to put in, how much energy they have. I can teach them what they need to know. And because our laws are constantly changing, they're going to have to be able to move and meld with each of those changes. So I need somebody that can think on their feet, that is willing to invest and be passionate about their job, and just good old-fashioned hard work.
I agree. That's the most important thing, really, in any kind of hire in any industry. But what qualities would make an existing employee stand out to you for something like a promotion?
Well, an employee that's willing to go the extra mile, an employee that will, it's state employment, you have to give the state 40 hours a week. There's some people that give 40 hours a week and they're done. I want somebody who's invested emotionally in their work product, because I'm going to eventually take that work product and I have to try that case. And I'm going to look good or I'm going to look bad based upon that investigation. And it's very important for me that they have a buy-in. They're not just counting widgets or something along those lines. I need them to understand what they're investigating, why they're investigating, and why it's important. So just having an employee that cares about the end product is what's the most important thing to me.
How would you say that you walk the line between a personal and a professional relationship with your employees?
Well, I think you definitely want to have a personal connection with your employees, but you have to be very cautious, because if you have more than a personal connection with each employee, then you're going to have issues where there's jealousy and there's infighting. And then you get to a point where you're afraid to hurt their feelings. You have to be able to be a manager at all times, and you lose your perspective when you become too personally involved with somebody.
I'd imagine it's really difficult to, like I said, to walk that line, and you want to be these person's friends, but at the same time, you need to crack the whip when you need to.
Well, exactly. And the thing is everybody is going to, at some point in time, have some life issue. They have a child that's sick or they are sick. You need to be able to show compassion. You want to know what's going on with them, but you want them to not feel like you're being nosy. But you want to care about them, and you want them to care about you. And that's very important. But you also have to make sure that there is a line of respect, that they realize that they can't take advantage of you and or the situation, but that they can come to you when they need help. And that's just a fine line. And I think you have to earn the respect that they give you. And it's very important to maintain that distance so that you can have that respect.
What would you say are your individual strengths that help when managing people?
Well, I think the best way to manage people is to lead by example. And if they see you working hard and putting everything into your cases, your investigations, what it is that you do, that will encourage them to also do the same. At least that's in hope. You hope that will do that. I think my strengths, I'm very energetic. I'm very passionate about what I do. I love I love people in general, and I think just wanting to make a team and make everybody working at their ultimate level is a goal that makes me a strong leader. But then I also, because I am invested in the end product very much so, I tend to, if somebody's not doing a good job, I'll hijack it away from them and just, I'll do it, never mind. And that's not, I do it and I've done it, but it's not really you're not going to achieve a overall positive outcome by doing it that way. That we fall in that trap on a regular basis. So
how would you handle a serious change in your company or industry having to do with like a new software change, new equipment, which I realize you wouldn't really have equipment to deal with?
now, computer equipment and the high-tech industry is very, security of our information. We've got very sensitive information about every employee in the state of Oklahoma. I have access to everybody's personal information and how we store and deal with that information. So that there is a lot of technical aspects. I don't have a lot of control over that because that's regulated by the state overall, but I do have control over how we manage our systems internally. We regularly, I've had a substantial change in a huge section of laws that just took effect, and I was confronted with having to put into place procedures beginning January 1st, and because everything changed, and it dealt with employee management and HR components, and you have to be prepared to make sure that your employees are aware of the change that's coming, understand how it affects them, and get systems in place so that you have the proper notifications and things like that. Because if an employee gets disciplined or they're fired or hired, or promoted, things like that, there's particular notice procedures and federal laws that you have to comply with, and just preparing in advance and making sure that everybody is aware so that there's no surprises later on down the line.
Since I think it was March 2 years ago now of 2020, and when COVID really shut the entire country down, how have you adjusted to that in the workplace?
Well, being a lawyer tends to be a very paper involved business, and I had taken over a job literally 2 weeks before we were ordered to start working from home. And I was very shocked when I found that the person that was managing the division previously they had not scanned all of these legal documents, all the evidence in our cases. And so that was a huge change. So we immediately started scanning and putting into place systems so that everybody could access the information from their home. And the state was not set up equipment-wise. We didn't have work computers. And so it was a complete and total change. And learning to manage when you don't see your employees is very difficult. And I realized over time the importance of human connection. You can talk to people on the phone and you can do Teams meetings all day long, but it's not the same as one-on-one where, people learn just from sitting around the water cooler. And especially for the legal environment, there's a lot of information that is exchanged, even though it feels like it's gossip. It's actually, I think, a very important component that has been lost over the past 2 years that I think people are realizing it, but then it's kind of hard to go back because you can't undo the past 2 years.
Mm-hmm. How are your employees encouraged to meet the goals that you've set for them?
Well, given that we're the state of Oklahoma, we have to have certain parameters, and we have to provide plans for the employees, and they have goals that they have to achieve. But I think it's very important to have the employee buy into the goal and to sit down and talk with your employee. If you've got so many cases that have to be investigated, you sit down with them and how are we going to go about that? And you need to get them to buy into the plan moving forward. And every goal it needs to be broken down into small obtainable goals so that, like maybe a weekly, each week we're going to do this much in these cases. And you're going to have weeks where things happen, and you're going to have weeks that things work better than what you planned. And but if you just say, here's your project, you have to have this done in 6 months, they're going to fail every time. You have to give them small bites, small manageable bites that they can achieve, and so that you can sit back and review, like maybe once a month, and see where they're at, and then what you need to tweak. Do we need to change how we're doing this? Do we need to do less of this and more of that? And to reassess and to make sure that we're not just doing something that, oh, well, that's the procedure, but it doesn't make any sense given the circumstances of this case. So I think it's just, you've got to get the employee involved and invested in the overall goal.
All right. Almost done. What have you learned about yourself and about personnel management since becoming a manager however many years ago?
Well, I think the most important thing I've learned about myself is that it's important for me to make my employees look good, and they need to be rewarded. And it's much easier to manage in a positive sense than it is in a negative sense. You know, to tell people you can't do this, you can't do that. You need to give them the tools and let them know what they can do, and maybe give them an opportunity to say, what if we tried this? You know, let them use, because they do a different job than I do, and they have contact with people that I don't have. And if something's not working, they need to feel like they can come to me and to achieve that goal. And so I think it needs to be a very symbiotic relationship, and you need to be able to listen to your employees, but then sometimes you need to be able to shut them up too, because it's like, no, we're not doing that, because, you know, we have to try this case and it has to look like this. And so it's just it's a give and take that is hard to achieve, but once you've achieved it, or you get there, and you have to keep it up, but I think it creates a mutual respect that is very important in any employment relationship.
And lastly, what advice would you give for a manager that was going to take over your position?
Well, you know, other than the nuts and bolts of the position, I think knowing your employees, and I don't mean like creating necessarily a personal relationship, but just knowing what motivates each employee. Everybody's motivated by something different, and you can't read a book and say, okay, this is my management style, or this is how to manage, because it's going to be
develop people skills that way.
Right. And it's you have to watch their body language. You have to listen to the size in their voice. You have to be there for them, to provide them what they need when they need it, so that they can be successful. And like I said, it's a give and take, and just to give the employees the tools that they need and allow them to do their job, and to not hijack the job from them, and, you know, delegate, but supervise.
Yes, I agree with that. Maybe one day I'll be a manager, hopefully.
I have no doubt that you will.
All right. Well, thank you for sitting down with me, and I hope to see you again soon.
Well, you will.
Have dinner tomorrow night.
Perhaps.
All right.